There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another wrong. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. Welcome to Bridges Programming. It's simple stuff. We're just trying to bridge the gaps between different people's thinking so we can come together as a species. Welcome to Wednesday World Call-In. My name is Jeff Bella. Next to me is Susan Comont. And on the phone is Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. We are here going to talk about Bucky Fuller. The book he's wrote, the last one is called Critical Path. We're on a chapter called
World Game.
World Game. And
his, today we hear that term and we think, oh, well, that's the evil empire trying to take over the world or something. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories flying around. But what Buckminster Fuller meant by world game was that it could be played, essentially, and I don't like to use that verb, but it could be conducted or played to the advantage of everyone. Every human,
everybody has
species.
fun playing the game.
Right, there you go. It's a
world game that we all can have fun.
We can all enjoy,
right, playing the game.
And he makes this distinction at the beginning here. I'll read the distinction in his words after your discussion.
The introduction is that this is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure on Bridges Programming. And one of the sponsors is Renew the Earth. And thank you, Renew the Earth. And that website is renewtheearth.org. We'll talk a little bit about that sometime. And you can go on that thing and see a lot of things called Earthlinks, and that's important. Susan writes
Earthling letters.
Earthling letters, and that's important.
And they're written to the little Earthlings, which are the children.
The children of this planet. And we are on a spaceship, and we call this Spaceship Earth. And Bucky, that was Bucky Fuller's first book, the operating manual to Spaceship Earth. And Bucky was a great humanitarian as well as a great engineer, probably a genius of some type. And he always liked to be called Bucky, not Mr. Fuller. So that's why we call him Bucky, because that was his preference. And on his tombstone is written Trim Tab, because call me Trim Tab, because he wanted to be called Bucky too, but call me Trim Tab, because he said that every human being doing something is like a little teeny trim tab on a rudder or an airplane that helps
to maneuver the
whole
huge
picture.
Ship.
Right.
Right.
And that's what the trim tab is.
So we all have our use, our power, our
one person makes a difference. So don't ever think that your actions don't make a difference. But we never know what the outcome is going to be, but we think we know, and there's a synergy that Bucky talks about. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan, but remember, Human Renewable Energy Measure. You can see that on your screen, the HREM.org. Renew the Earth, which is on your screen now, renewtheearth.org. And of course, Bridges Programming, which is, you're more than welcome to do any programming on Bridges Programming.
Just get in touch.
We'll
try to set it up.
And that
with our technician.
And you'll be able to do humanitarian programs. It's the only, as far as I know, humanitarian station in the country, or in the world for that matter, because I look online to try to find out other humanitarian stations.
Broadcasting stations.
And we're going to be bringing in, we have permission to bring in Richard Wolf. So we're going to be pulling his programs into
hopefully soon. Yeah.
So we're going to start doing that.
Levi is cogitating on that subject as we speak.
So anyway, those are the three websites. You're listening to World Calling on Wednesday, and with us is Susan Comont and Dennis Carius, and I'm Jeff Bella, and we're going to be talking about Bucky's book, Critical Path. Okay.
His ideas, that are written in those. That's what we'll be talking about.
And Dennis, you can interrupt any time.
Another thing.
And Dennis could even read. He sees right on the screen. Started streaming less than an hour ago. World Game is a continuing scientific research. So, Susan, anytime you want, I'd be happy to read.
Good. Go ahead and read the summary, Dennis.
Great. Here it is. World Game is a continuing scientific research in physical prototyping development. It is devoted to progressive discovery of how most efficiently and expeditiously to employ the total world around resources. And that's number one, the total world around resources. Number two, total accumulated knowledge. And number three, the total already produced technological tooling of Spaceship Earth. Wow. All three to the ever-advancing equal advantage of all its present and future passengers.
Well done.
Mr. Fuller. Wow.
Very well read, Dennis.
Well, thank you. And Bucky did a great job writing that, too.
Yes, I agree. And he pulls it all together in that last sentence, that all of this is for the advancing and equal advantage of all its present and future passengers. And we're talking about Spaceship Earth, and we're talking about future development of scientific research. We're talking about the resources that we all share, the natural resources, the accumulated knowledge that we all share, because we've all been involved as little trim tabs developing this over thousands of years as a species. The total already produced technology, and this communication technology that we have, that we're using right now, is going to be key to the survival of our species, I believe, because this is a communication extraordinaire. It is a communication that we've never had as a species before. It has no time constraints. Within less than a few minutes after we finish this program, it's posted on YouTube. It can be accessed, and any computer around the world. This is real, almost real-time communication. It's almost like having a mind meld with anyone you would think of, like the Vulcans, like Dr. Spock, and may he rest in peace, was able to do with his other Vulcans. And sometimes he would do it with other humans, right? But it was a very big strain on the human. But this is not a strain for us.
I got something to tell you.
Oh, yeah?
And it just came to mind, and I don't want to lose it. It's like the old expression, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. We could bring these programs to you forever, but if you don't pay attention to what we're trying to say. Now, we're not saying we're right. We're asking you to think about it and maybe come up with an idea of your own and get it out there. Well, and the Vulcan mind meld is only as good as people would allow themselves to appreciate. So, in other words, the reason why you had a mind meld is because you couldn't explain it in words.
Right.
So we're having a tough time explaining the human renewable energy measure into words. But if I can give you a mind meld, is what I would love to be able to do, then you'd see what I see. If you watch V for Vendetta, which was a great science fiction movie, which I thought was very close to reality, though. He was saying, if you could see what I see, you know there's something wrong with our system. You know there's something wrong with our political system. You know we have dysfunctionality to help the poor. But we don't, and we have tremendous functionality to help the very wealthy. But we don't have it set up where we stop killing one another. We all understand that, especially if you're not in the Western world. In the Western part of this planet, or the Western part of this, our house, whatever you want to call it, we're all part of the same thing. We have to stop killing other human beings. So if you can understand what we're talking about, please, when you go to a bar, talk to your friends at the bar about the human renewable energy measure, that all humanity has to have their basic needs met. And when you go to a church, talk to your pastor about doing a Herman instead of a sermon. See if you can get a movement on this. But we can't do it for you. There's no one person in charge. We all have to take the responsibility to make sure all humanity has their basic needs met. And once we understand that all humanity has value, then you wouldn't have a problem with renewable energy. It'll flow like water because it's part of nature.
And it is the most economical thing to do. This is a very important underlying aspect of as we go forward and are choosing. And we're choosing a path that's going to sustain and life on this planet, all life, not just human life, but unfortunately or fortunately, at this point, humans are a natural force because we on this planet, because we dominate.
We're physically doing something.
We're dominating right. A lot of the ways that resources are being used, etc. We are a lot of us, and we are causing extinctions of other life forms because of our needs. But what will happen if we're choosing for life support, not just human life support, but first you do have to consider human life support because we're the ones that are making the systems right now, but we have to make them so that they will ultimately be supporting all life, conserving resources and using them efficiently. And if this is your goal and impetus of your economic system, and this is where we integrate this kind of human renewable energy measure, is in the economic system. And if that is your premise and your goal to support life on this planet and do things efficiently in support of life on this planet, then you're going to get all these technologies that are the most efficient. The renewable energy technologies, those will become dominant. The
good health care.
The nutrition that is sustainable and organic, and that will be the common practice.
GMOs that work for people, not to make money with.
Yes, don't use the word GMOs because that offends people. But what we're talking about is nutrition that is supported by best practices, and we know the best practices are the sustaining of the soil through organic practices and not chemical, dominating.
Not to make money.
Fertilizers and not profit making and then waste. We know these things. We know how to do it right. And as we are emphasizing life survival and not profit, if you're emphasizing life survival, that's a path that goes a different direction from what we're doing now. We are right near it. We're on a road. The path is there for us to choose. That road is there for us to choose. It's not a conclusion. It is only the beginning of a road that will take us to life support on this planet and not destruction of
by the way, we've been
on this planet.
In the last first of all, for 5,000 years, more or less, we've been on a path of profit making, where we're worshiping money rather than humanity
or life.
Or life. And what's happened is it's sort of becoming more and more obvious, because it wasn't as obvious. I'm sure it was obvious if you were a slave during the Roman Empire, and before the Roman Empire, there was battles done, but that's when the economic system started. And then we got to the Christianity or religion. Before that there was paganism, other belief systems. But right now, between science and we're still learning. We're a stupid species still, but we're still learning. And the trouble with most of the educated people, they're intellectually paralyzed. They can't seem to open their minds up to see there may be other paths.
And there is possibility of cooperation worldwide.
Worldwide cooperation.
And Buckminster Fuller emphasizes this with one.
Well, I want to tell you about the critical path. Right now, we happen to be we're on the wrong path, but there's a branch we can take now. And we believe that road is marked the Human Renewable Energy Measure Road. And if you could get onto that, it's a critical path. And that's what Bucky was saying.
And it will lead to other paths.
And it will lead to good paths where there's fruitful paths where you have plenty of food and plenty of shelter for all, and not slavery. It's a better path. Now, we may not be right. I think this is the better path. So that's what the Human Renewable Energy Measurement path is. And it is, as Bucky was saying, a critical path. So that's why and Bucky was great, but he died 30 years ago. And I think we're just hitting a point now in time, just like
when the communication is so great, as he predicted.
And also we can measure the energy of food and shelter and water and time. We can, for the first time in history, we can put it together.
But we don't want to monetize them. We want just to measure them for survival purposes, for
energy.
Not only survival. First, you got to do survival, but then you do enhancement of life and enhancement of our potentials, all our potentials. I mean, it is amazing to me how much wasted potential, human potential, there is on this planet right now. If you think about it, only a very, very few people who are not constrained by their economics for whatever reason, that they have the free time to pursue their dreams and their ambitions and their projects, their technical or whatever, or artistic, or whatever projects they have. They are not constrained by economics, whereas 90% of us are.
When you say constrained by economics, because the system now is
demands so much time
of your time, your lifetime,
right? Your
lifetime. That's a big problem.
But anyway, we talked about that in another program about that term, earning a living, and you can find it because every one of these programs is titled. But I wanted to read in relation to what you were saying before, Jeff, what Buckminster Fuller said, quote, "There can be no planetary equality until all the sovereign nations are abolished, and we have but one accounting system, that of one family of humans aboard Spaceship Earth." Do you understand how
That's fantastic. You're saying that there are no boundaries. The boundaries are man-made. The boundaries between Canada and the United States.
We're not talking about a world government here. We're talking about a human agreement.
Right.
A human agreement that, and he even refers to one accounting system. And I don't know if he meant by that, what we mean by it, which is that we can now account or measure what we need to survive in terms of food and water, shelter, and education. Those things we can measure. You don't equate them to money. You equate them to the result, energy units. And if you have sufficient energy units in food and water, and the comfort of your shelter so that you don't freeze or whatever, or get ill, that's measurable. and every part of the world that they all have different kinds of shelters, they all have different types of foods, but all these things are equatable each to each. And education, of course, is the overriding, arching, ongoing, conscious and unconscious trail or that we all access, and we all are moving forward as a species because we can access education. And if a huge percentage of us are not, or it's very difficult for us to get the education we need, or we're just having to go into huge debt in order to acquire some of the education that we need. And I'm not saying that all education is happening, and the most significant education doesn't necessarily happen within our education institutions. Some of the most significant education is our life experiences of the people that we meet, their understanding their life experiences, the natural forces around us that affect us, the other life forms that we observe, just on our own and without prejudice of an institution of learning, though these are extremely useful because our accumulated knowledge, there is an attempt, a huge attempt to accumulate all of our knowledge, and we can access it now, through the internet, through Googling, and it's quite an amazing time in that respect. I'm going to go back to what Buckminster Fuller says about the term world game and the term world war gaming, as he calls it. And world war gaming would be equatable to, what people think is happening in some sectors of the world, if indeed the privileged small percentage of the population can cooperate with each other, which I doubt. But, people who pursue power, they have things in common, and sometimes they do work together. And, and if they have power and money and influence, sometimes, their goals coincide. And there are theories that these goals coincide to the manipulation and control of a world government type goal. But this was not what Buckminster Fuller was talking about when he said world game. It is, as we said earlier in the program, a game that we all can play to the advantage of everyone. And here's where he talks about world war gaming and world gaming. Quote, world war gaming, in contradistinction to world gaming, assumes Darwin's, quote, survival only of the fittest to be a ruling evolution, and that there exists a lethal inadequacy of life support on our planet. World war gaming employs the evolutionarily advancing, most comprehensive and incisive scientifically and technologically feasible capabilities to develop and mass-produce weaponry, systems that will ever more swiftly devastate all enemy life support artifacts and kill ever more people at ever greater ranges in ever shorter periods of time. So he was predicting even drones at that point. In contradistinction to the inherently vast wastage of world war gaming objectives, world gaming takes advantage of ephemeralization, technology's ever higher strength per weight metallic alloys and chemistries, and ever more comprehensively incisive and inclusive electronic circuitry performances per volumes and weights of apparatuses used, and employs ever progressively less weight and volume of materials, ergs of energy, and seconds of time per each technical function accomplished, and employs those ever improving functions to produce ever more advanced living artifacts instead of the killing weapons of World War gaming. And that's the end of that quote. And he uses the word living to be the, of course, opposite of killing. And he liked to invent words, and it's a delightful
I want to just clarify that.
Of his writing. I can read that over again.
But I want to clarify what I think I heard. And what I heard him saying was, when you have weaponry being made for killing people, you are physically doing damage to the planet and to other human beings and other species. How, like when you test bombs in the water to see how damaging they could be, or you've killed tremendous amount of fish.
Right.
We did programs on that.
Right.
And you've contaminated. And when you do nuclear tests, you're contaminating the environment. When you're producing electric through things we know that are damaging things no longer that we can tolerate, like messing up our support system, our air support system. However, when you work for living, you don't do that kind of damage. You don't kill one another. You do the same physical stuff, but physical stuff is done to benefit people. Like, for instance, you can build food that is beneficial for humanity, not to make money with it the best possible way. Education for all. I don't mean just basic education, but the more education you have, if you decide you want to put paperwork to that, like a sheepskin, as they used to call it, or a PhD, you could do that, but it should never cost anything. And if you do want to supply, let's say, solar panels for every single roof, you print the money for the solar panels. People who want to put solar panels on their roof, they don't have to. It's not a mandatory, but they can get the piece of paper that says solar panels. That's marked with a number. That's a form of a currency. And then they have their physical solar panels on their roof. And once that hits the bank, it's then destroyed. It's not that complicated today. People say, oh, you can't do that. You're going to create inflation. No, once the money is destroyed, you don't make money. The biggest inflation maker we have is people making money on money without putting anything physically back into the system. And I can't understand why I can understand the economists won't talk about it, especially someone like Brown, Ellen Brown, or I think that's her name. I mean, she's a smart woman. Why aren't you talking about that stock markets are the biggest form of inflation makers? Right. Not the people who want more salary. The actual money is the inflation maker, not the people. So now, suppose you want schools or you want roads. You build you print the money so people can physically live well for the benefits they're getting, and then the money is destroyed at the bank. It's no longer used for money to make money on. That is a big problem. You can't keep on doing that, and can't keep on blaming people for creating inflation. It's the human beings have their energy. Human beings are energy. We are, in fact, renewable energy. We take from the sun our energy units for food and shelter and water, and we have a certain lifespan. We are, in fact, renewable energy, and we are physical. And you can't legislate the fact that we need less food, less water. You can't legislate that. They're physical facts of nature. It's physics, and that's why the human renewable energy measurement
Nature is the bottom line law of the universe. We can make all of our human laws, but in the end, nature is the bottom line, and you cannot contradict that. And so it's our premise that is where we need to begin. And Buckminster Fuller felt the same way as far as technology.
And so did
Tesla.
And so did Tesla,
Right.
and so did Sir Thomas More in the 18th century. So did many people. But this is the
laws
first.
are distorted now in favor
first
of
time
companies
in history,
that are working for profit.
It's the first time in history we can now measure what we need in energy units for food and shelter. And we know we have a lifespan of about 80 years with today's technology. So we put all this together and we name it like we do gravity. We call it the HRM.org. And we think the Human Renewable Energy Measure, and we think that this may be an answer. We're not sure, we're not positive. We're asking people to look at, we need a measurement that's agreed upon worldwide, that every human being must have their needs met. And that's the way we do the GDP, not how much money we make. That's got to be changed. GDP has to be measured on how well a society lives, their quality of life in each society around the world. That's how we judge GDP, not how much money it makes. I can't stress that upon people as much as it's got to be changed. Okay, we'll continue on. Dennis, you have anything you want to say? We're 50% through our programming now. Would you like to comment?
Well, it's very interesting because we have technology has moved forward so well that really you could put solar panels on all those roofs out there, and you can get so much energy. And like you said, we print money. I mean, years ago we weren't doing this, but now not just millions or billions, but it's like trillions of dollars are being printed. Well, if you print the money and you put those solar panels on that roof, then you're going to get all that money back, because then the energy that those solar panels collect will save you from having to pay for all the fossil fuel that's being burned for that energy in your home. So it really is, the technology's there today. It's
Right.
just,
The technology is available, and it keeps getting better, as Buckminster Fuller predicted in Critical Path. He predicted that this is all the technology is all going to be moving forward. He's in that paragraph that I just read. He's saying that the metallic alloys, the chemistries, the electronic circuitry, the weight of these things is getting lighter, ever progressively less weight and volume of materials, but producing more energy. So he's saying the technology, as you're saying, Dennis, that it's getting more and more efficient, and that all this should be used toward the benefit of living, or livingry, as he put it, and not toward profit and manipulation of the power structures of the world.
Two things I want to bring out before you go further. Number one, Dennis.
And he saw that it could be done, and we see that it can be done.
Number one,
that's the whole
Dennis,
aspect of Buckminster Fuller and what we're trying to say.
Right, Dennis, you brought out billions and trillions of dollars that we print up. It doesn't matter what we print; it's how we produce the product to help humanity. Supposing I tell you it's going to cost you $5 million for your food today. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to, I won't eat it. But
you will probably not eat today, right?
Yeah, okay, you're right, the second day. But
and for some for people in some parts of the world, in a lot of parts of the world, that is what the equivalent is to them. I mean, they need that kind of equivalence of money in order to go from day to day to get what they need.
I want to get to that point that the money is the amount of money is irrelevant. It's the physical stuff you need to survive. And that's where we're have to come from. That it's not how much trillions of dollars that you'll save by not buying electric. It's about how much money not money we can make, but how comfortable we can make other people around the world and stop killing each other. And that's where.
Yes, and a good example.
Well, no. When you bring out money, you are glazing over the problem, because it's not money, it's energy units we need.
Right.
Not money.
Right.
We need energy units and food and shelter in a minimal amount of time life. So
and we used to understand that as a species.
We don't do it anymore.
Right.
It's a worship of money, just like the golden calf, the worship of the golden calf.
There's a distraction in the way now.
And so it's very hard to get away from that, because most people in the world worship money, not the energy they require to help each other and themselves. And the second thing I want to bring out, when Bucky was talking about, a friend of ours is helping us build a solar boat right now. And we have lead acid batteries in them. And we talked about the best technology, which would be lithium batteries. The problem with lithium batteries is they're expensive. They're lighter weight, they do better, they'll last longer, but they're expensive. They're thousands of dollars compared to hundreds of dollars.
And that stops a lot of people from using them.
But why not have the best technology and the best product, so we we continue to have a better quality of life for all, and start making lithium batteries and just print up the amount of money we require for that, and not allow anyone to, and then you can figure out a really good tax structure so nobody wants to make too much. You can figure that out, which we did 40 years ago, before they decided that the trickle-down theory worked, but then they changed the tax structures because they didn't know how much it was to change. Anyway, it goes on and on. But I just wanted to bring those two things out, that money is irrelevant.
Or when we're dealing with things that everybody needs for life support elements, money is irrelevant, because it does not equate to life support elements.
Right.
And the resource-based economy addresses these kind of ideas too, but doesn't feel that you need any kind of free market type of structure once the needs are met, and it doesn't give that option. It wants to eliminate money altogether. These two concepts are not incompatible. They can be compatible and resolve various problems with each other's thinking process, but this is something that has to be common. You know, it has to use a lot of brains to iron out these various connections, and that's why I want to mention at this point that if you go to the Human Renewable Energy website, which is thehrem.org. You have to put the word "the" there, or else you go to a nursing thing, HREM, that is an organization for nurses. That's not what we're doing. It's thehrem.org.
THEHREM.
And if you do that, you'll get there, go into the blog, and recently posted is the beginning of the introduction to a manuscript that we hope will eventually be a collaborative effort. We're inviting people to contribute their ideas to making this a part of this idea of the human renewable energy measure, a part of our economic system. We feel it's essential that something like that become the focus of our economics. And Buckminster Fuller talks again here in his book Critical Path, quote, technical artifacts. And when he says artifacts, he means creations, like for him, the various vehicles that he designed, and the geodesic dome, he would call that an artifact. Something that that is so close to nature that it in its design that it will be acceptable, and into the future it will keep becoming more and more used because it's so close to what nature agrees with. And he says here, quote, technical artifacts invented and produced by humans employing generalized scientific principles of universe. And he used that word universe capitalized, and that would mean everything we understand and more than we understand, such as the principles of leverage, optics, magnetics, mass attraction, etc. He's talking about, with that list, the things that are natural forces that we've been able to define. So one thing that, and that can include how we've been able to define distance and volume and velocity and why not define what equates to life survival? Why not define that is what we're saying. One of the things we're saying with the human renewable energy measure. And these are the things that will most successfully cope with life challenges, is what Buckminster Fuller is trying to say in this. And he had to invent words. And I mean, it's amazing how inadequate language is to express things like this. But once we condense it to a functioning activity, like, you take your ruler. Now we have a ruler and you can measure the size of a room. You don't have to explain to somebody in words what you're doing. You just take that ruler, you lay it on the wall or whatever, and you look at the numbers and okay, this is 3 feet. Well, and you didn't have to, I'm trying to say that once we condense something very complex
that we agree to,
and we agree, right, then it becomes something that's, it's almost like a second nature in a way. Of course, it's still learned to an extent. Of course, we have to learn, about numbers and things like that when we're very, very young. This is usually when it happens. But once we have made symbols or agreements that we can all, no matter what our language is, use and
that we agree upon. Like right. If I tell you I'm wearing a black shirt,
and the way you know
that I'm lying, because we know that it's a white shirt. We all agree, blanco, white. Different language has different names for the color, but we all agree upon that color. We all agree upon a certain distance. We agree upon this. These are agreed upon numbers and figures and words. Mm-hmm. Now the shades vary. The way we get to it may vary a bit because that's subjective. But most things we're talking about in the economic world can be measured in a pretty much objective way to make sure all humanity has their basic needs met. And that's what the HREM, the HREM is about.
So I encourage anybody who, who listens to this program or any, please go to thehrem.org website, go into the blog and contribute your ideas to how to better express this, and help us express it better.
Don't send us money. Don't give us your social security number. Don't put your email in if you don't want it. Don't do anything but produce thinking and get other people to start thinking about how we stop killing one another, stop blaming different parts of our house or our planet.
For all the problems
we're in. Stop blaming your politicians because they're not responsible. They're just playing the economic game. Stop blaming your neighbor. You're blaming, there's certain physical things that you have to take responsibility for. And there's, if you let your place crap up and it overflows to your neighbor, yeah, you're responsible for that. If you're creating very loud music and annoyances that other people don't want to listen to, you're responsible for those actions. If you shoot somebody, yes, you're responsible. But you are killing people every single day that we live. And we don't appreciate that. I don't say appreciate, we don't realize that. We think we're doing good when we give someone some charity. But the reality is our economic system is killing people around the world every single minute of the day. And we have to face that. And then how do we stop it? We need the way of stopping it is some sort of a measurement. If you're going to measure voltage in a house or certain voltages of difference around the world, but you can still come to understand there are certain voltages, there are certain measurements that we all have to agree upon. And once we agree upon those measurements, we can then go from that point. And right now, there is no starting point for human beings' basic requirements met. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you, Dennis, or am I just expounding?
It makes sense to Dennis, yes.
Okay, well,
I came across something very interesting and when I was reading forward yesterday in Critical Path, and I can't confirm this nor deny it, but it's asserted by Buckminster Fuller in here in this book, and I will read it to you. And it speaks to the idea of making things more and more efficient. And he makes this point, which is amazing to me, if this is true. Graphs, quote, of each of the world's 150 nations, so he was saying there were 150 at that time, that would have been the 80s, showing their 20th century histories of inanimate energy production per capita of their respective populations, together with graphs of those countries' birth rates, show, without exception, that the birth rates decrease at exactly the same rate that the per capita consumption of inanimate electrical energy increases. The world's population will stop increasing when and if the integrated world electrical energy grid is realized.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because people in poverty-stricken nations keep on having lots of children. Where if you have, and then when you have, let's say, Italy, a Catholic community, Christians, Pope, all that stuff, they have a negative birth rate, and but they're very.
But he's equating this to the access to electrical energy.
But you can do that with you can do that with education, because the education the electrical energy allows you to have more time to use to educate yourself. You have more computer work, you have more power for reading at night, you can educate yourself. Then you can also
use
one
aspect of it, but it also allows for more efficient
refrigeration, cooking.
Right, cooking, refrigeration, growing of crops. Everything becomes more efficient. One of the jobs or the tasks of most of the people around the world, which are, and I don't think this is a well-known fact either, that most of the families of the world are subsistence farmers. If you're looking at populations and taking what is the occupation of most people in the world, it's subsistence farming. And one aspect of that is then at the at different points during the day to cook meals, is gathering of wood to burn to cook these meals. And so this is a labor intensive activity that goes on every day, mostly delegated to the women of the family and children. And it's right there, you're I mean, you can see the impact of something like that. It's not, I don't need to belabor it. Anyway,
go ahead, Dennis. What's that?
Technology is moving forward so well right now.
But it's not shared worldwide. Yeah,
when they hit 18 years old and graduates high school at the age of 18.
Wait a second, but Dennis, how are we sharing this technology with the rest of the world?
It's not being shared. The benefits of it are not being shared worldwide. And Buckminster Fuller was saying, if that were the case, and if our goal and our purpose with our economics was to disperse technology overall to everyone, living on this planet, then yes, everyone would be able to, there would be no problem. There would be no scarcity of resources. There would be no longer the attitude of survival of the fittest. There is no scarcity. There's just a lack of proper distribution of technology and the food and shelter and education that is possible now.
Matter of fact, when people, we got to face up to this one too, that there are people starving on this planet. Do you agree with that, Dennis, that people are starving on this planet?
Yes, in Africa, children died just not having enough water to drink because they put the water in the pail.
But the problem is, Dennis, it's not the lack of food that's killing people from starvation. It's the lack of distribution of that food. It's the lack of distribution of the technology to make sure people have clean water. It's the lack of the distribution of it because of lack of money, which is not real. We have the technology to do great things as a species, but the economic system is holding us back.
Because of its premise.
Because of the premise of
profit and power consolidation, and the laws are being written to the advantage of corporations whose only desire is for profit and power consolidation and use of resources in a not efficient manner, because it's not necessary for them to. They're not being required at all to.
The very wealthy
use
people
anything,
want power and control
efficiently.
And the way they get power and control, a very small percentage of the world population, is through our economic system. And by the way, I'm not saying people shouldn't have more than other people. We're not saying that. We're not saying that everybody should share equally.
You have to define more and less, because
the thing is,
I wouldn't say that having more money is having more.
No, what I'm saying is all humanity has to have their basic needs met, but your wants are different. Every human being has a different want, or a different, like you may want to have oatmeal for breakfast, or I may want to have a piece of cake for breakfast. That's a different want, but we still need the same things, but we have different needs. You may want to go out to the all-you-can-eat buffet and eat caviar. I may go there and like the soup, but it's all about wants are different than needs. All needs must be met for all humanity, and we have to stop destroying our life support systems. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys.
Well, yes, and really, Jeff, it doesn't mean that people cannot make as much money as they want. The problem is there should be a limit to how that is done. If I'm a millionaire and I want to be a billionaire.
Whoa, Dennis, I got to stop you there, because who's going to decide that limit? Unless you have the measurement in place, you can't decide a limit. Of course, you don't know how much zero is. If you don't have zero, supposing I don't give you a number, a scale, and then I want you to tell me how much is a pound without a scale. Can you tell me how much it should weigh without a scale?
Not without a scale.
So
right.
We're asserting that ground zero is
basic
what supports life.
Right. So you can't say there's a limit. Once you've got a scale in place, you can say, okay, this is what you need, basic needs met, and then you can say this is your excess, and we can now measure that in energy units, and then convert the energy units to some kind of a billion or a trillion or a quadrillion or whatever you want to do. Or maybe you just have to go as high as $1. It doesn't matter, because that's irrelevant. But that's irrelevant.
Some people are doing a good job. But I'm saying there are other people, if they want to be rich, they say, I can get that oil from the Middle East and I can, bring it over here at a real low price and then sell it for $3 a gallon or $4 a gallon and make a lot of money. But the problem is what's happening in the Middle East is it's not good.
Well, the thing is, what's happening in the Middle East is because of the economy. That's what's happening in the Middle East. The economy is getting all screwed up. And that's why we're killing people. It's because of the economy. You see, Dennis, you got to have a basic start point before you could say what's too much or what's too little or what's minimum wage. It's arbitrary. It has no value as far as I can see. If you keep throwing out numbers, that's what the politicians are doing. Well, you're going to have a minimum wage, or you're going to have to. Well, how much taxes should I pay? No one knows that because you don't have a basic start point. Measurements are the most important thing, and human beings are, in fact, a human renewable energy, and we have to have a measurement. Measurable. We can now, for the first time in history, measure those things. I don't know if I can't make that any clearer.
I'm going to read something.
Jeff, you've heard the word greed before, right?
But that's only the word greed is nothing. The word greed is nothing more than an emotion.
Well, that's encouraged a great deal by our economic
system. Right, our economic system likes you when you use emotional words.
Well, no, they like the idea of people being greedy, and encourages that.
Well, again, that's subjective, but I'm just with the word
because
greed.
That encourages the hoarding of money, the making of money on money. I mean, and that's how the system survives at this point. Can I go back to Buckminster
Fuller? Yeah, please go ahead.
I know we've talked about greed a lot on other programs, and maybe we beat that into the ground. He's saying, and he's ever hopeful, and we're hopeful, that there are solutions to the difficulties that we're encountering. We're getting the same unfortunate and tragic symptoms from this system of economics that we, the war, the displaced people, the horrible bombings and misunderstandings that come when we don't see our commonality. And Buckminster Fuller, he's saying we are designing things now, we are building things. And at that time, they weren't even as advanced as they are now. I mean, there are people thinking of mining asteroids now, and they're getting ready for that, to send, and they're even trying to make laws so that we can lay claim as a country to asteroids and say, that's my asteroid, and I'm saying that's part of my country. Right, and how in the world can you make, I mean, this is a nothing, words that define that's mine. You can't say the universe is yours. You can't say the planet Earth is yours. You can't say that because
You can say it, but it's not true.
No, I mean, it's not a reality.
You're only here on a visit. You are a piece of renewable energy, and that's what you have to face up to. And we have to stop killing other human beings. And the only reason
there would be anyone trying to make laws like that is because they want to make profit. They want to exploit that asteroid, get its resources, sell them at a profit, and hoard that income to themselves or to their company or whatever. And Buckminster Fuller is saying, and he's a hopeful man, and we're hopeful, quote, world games design science employs all the known generalized principles and technical inventions and invents others where artifacts adequate for solving the newly emerging and foreseeably arising problems do not as yet exist. World gaming incorporating ever more performance per function and higher energy efficiencies with ever less bounds and volumes of resources continually redesigns the artifacts and technical systems, employing those ever-improving materials.
Cars and farms and factories and trucks.
Supplies go down, prices soar,
wages are foresighted,
and when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought.
On this planet.
It all comes down to energy.
Running out of time. Thank you very, very much.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees.
Thank you again for listening. Dennis, thank you. Thank you for listening. There's our cat in the background. We'll take a look at
oil companies.
Okay, we'll see you as soon as we
can kill
can.
the world.
We're here to spread the news of energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.